Imagine watching your home become a battlefield, your family destroyed not by armies, but by disaster and revenge. In the hellish chaos of the Kansas Missouri border, one farmer, William Bloody Bill Anderson, would turn the Civil War into an unmatched nightmare. After his sister Josephine was killed in the 1863 Kansas City jail collapse and his world shattered, Anderson took up arms, unleashing terror with tactics so vicious that even Confederate officers recoiled. Nearly 190 civilians slaughtered at Lawrence, 22 Union soldiers executed, and over 100 more massacred at Centralia, all carried out with calculated fury. But what transformed a grieving farmer into the Civil War's most feared butcher, and what did it cost the nation to stop him? Kansas and Missouri spent years locked in a brutal struggle that blurred the line between war and personal vendetta. In the decade before the Civil War, rival militias clashed over slavery and land, turning the borderlands into a battleground where government authority barely existed. Towns were raided, homes burned, and families forced to choose sides or face violence from both. Local sheriffs and judges often doubled as partisan leaders, using the badge to settle old scores. Vigilante justice replaced the law, and each new attack brought swift retaliation. Union and Confederate forces tried to control the chaos, but their reach barely extended beyond the largest towns. Out in the countryside, armed bands roamed freely, hunting enemies and suspected traitors. The violence became self-perpetuating. A raid in one county triggered a reprisal in the next, and soon the original reasons for fighting were lost in the cycle of revenge. Children grew up knowing that a neighbor's flag could mean death. By the early 1860s, this region was already soaked in blood, and trust had vanished. The collapse of order made it possible for men like William Anderson to rise. In this world, loyalty was measured by the willingness to strike first, and to hit back twice as hard when the blow came. The borderlands were primed for a new kind of war, one where personal grudges fueled atrocities, and no one was safe from becoming the next target. August 13th, 1863 began like any other day in Kansas City, but by afternoon the city's fragile order had shattered. The women's prison on Grand Avenue, 3 stories of brick, crammed with the wives and sisters of suspected guerrillas, suddenly gave way. 17 women and a teenage boy were inside when the walls buckled. The collapse killed 4, including Josephine Anderson, and left Jenny Anderson, her younger sister, pinned beneath the rubble with both legs broken. Witnesses heard the screams echo through the street. Union guards rushed in, but the damage was done. Later, inquest testimony and affidavits pointed to a rotten support beam and overcrowding, not sabotage. Still, rumors spread faster than the truth. Pro-Confederate newspapers accused Union guards of removing supports out of cruelty. Barroom stories grew darker with every retelling. For William Anderson, the facts didn't matter. He saw only the body of his sister and the ruined life of another. In that moment, his anger found a target. He swore vengeance against anyone wearing Union blue. The prison collapse turned Anderson's private rage into a public oath. From that day, he was no longer just another man caught in the border war. He would gather men who shared his fury and carry out a campaign of retribution. The deaths in that broken building set him on a path that would stain the borderlands with even more blood. Anderson's band didn't look like any regular army. Each man rode with 4, sometimes 6 Colt revolvers strapped across his chest and saddle. That meant up to 36 shots before anyone needed to reload. A wall of close-range fire that could sweep a street or break a cavalry charge in seconds. Carbines and rifles were rare, those slowed a man down. The revolver was king, fast and deadly from horseback, and every guerrilla drilled for speed. Horses mattered just as much. Anderson's riders picked only the fastest and strongest, swapping out tired mounts for fresh ones at hidden farms. That's how they could vanish after a raid, covering 50 miles in a day if needed. New faces arrived often, drawn by stories of vengeance and loot. Among them were two brothers, Jesse and Frank James, still teenagers but already hungry for a cause and a reputation. Anderson wanted men who could shoot without mercy and ride without fear. He found them in the angry, the dispossessed, and the young. With this force, he was ready to strike where it would hurt the most. At first light on August 21st, 1863, the streets of Lawrence, Kansas were silent. Then, without warning, riders thundered in, 300 strong, pistols drawn, faces set for murder. Anderson rode among the front ranks, his revolvers already hot. Doors splintered, men and boys were dragged from beds or shot as they ran. Storefronts burned and gunfire echoed from every alley. Survivors remembered Anderson by name. He showed no hesitation, whether the target was a grown man or a teenager begging for mercy. In less than 4 hours, the raiders killed between 160 and 190 people. Some accounts put the number even higher, but the town's records stopped counting. Flames swallowed the business district as Anderson's men looted cash drawers and set fire to homes. One survivor hiding in a cellar later described the sound of boots and laughter above, the killers searching for anyone left alive. By midday, Lawrence was a cemetery. Anderson's reputation as the devil took root here, earned in blood and smoke. The message was clear. No one wearing Union blue or living under its flag would be spared. September 27, 1864, Centralia, Missouri. Anderson's men halted a westbound train, yanked 22 Union soldiers from their seats, and lined them up in a ditch. None were armed. Anderson gave the order. The first shots rang out, then the rest of the gang emptied their revolvers at point-blank range. Not a single soldier survived. The executions were just the beginning. News of the massacre reached a nearby Union column, over 100 strong, who rode in to confront the guerrillas. Anderson set his trap. Hidden in the brush, his riders waited until the Federals were close, then charged with pistols blazing. In less than 10 minutes, the ground was littered with bodies. Union dead, 123, their ranks shattered by a storm of lead. Survivors told of men scalped, mutilated, and left as warnings. Anderson's men tied knots in ropes to count the fallen. The Centralia slaughter stunned even hardened soldiers. From that day, Union officers hunted Anderson with orders to take no prisoners. Union patrols fanned out across the Missouri countryside, searching every thicket and crossroads for Anderson and his men. After Centralia, commanders in St. Louis and regional headquarters gave clear orders. Anderson's gang was to be hunted down and destroyed, no quarter given. Lieutenant Colonel Samuel P. Cox took charge of the pursuit, setting up a tight grid of patrols and informers. Bounties were posted in county seats. Dead or alive, Anderson's head brought a reward. Cavalry detachments rode day and night, checking farmsteads and river crossings while telegraphs crackled with sightings and warnings. Each new report drew the circle tighter. Cox's men were told not to hesitate. If Anderson's riders appeared, shoot on sight, no questions, no surrender. The countryside braced for the final reckoning. On October 26, 1864, William T. Anderson led his last charge near the village of Albany, Missouri. Expecting another easy victory, he rode straight into a line of waiting Union militia under Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Cox. The first volley dropped Anderson from his horse with a gunshot to the head. His body was stripped of weapons and taken to Richmond, where crowds gathered to see the infamous guerrilla laid out for public view. Around his neck, Union men tied a rope, knotting it once for every victim they believed he had claimed. Newspapers called him the devil, but even Confederate officers felt relief at his death. Anderson's brutality had become a burden to his own side, costing them sympathy and support. Yet the violence he unleashed did not die with him. Men who rode under his command, like Jesse and Frank James, would carry his methods into a new era of outlaw legend. In just over a year, William T. Bloody Bill Anderson's band executed more than 160 civilians at Lawrence and at least 145 soldiers and passengers at Centralia, as confirmed by National Park Service records and local archives. The collapse of the Kansas City Women's Prison on August 13, 1863, killing Anderson's sister, ignited a campaign of vengeance that the official Union response could not contain. Union orders for Anderson to be shot on sight, and his public display after death on October 26, 1864, show how terror forced military policy into new territory. Historians agree that Anderson's tactics, multi-revolver ambushes, recruitment of outlaws, and use of fear, changed the war on the western border and fueled post-war banditry. Yet, the full number of his victims and the exact chain of command behind specific atrocities remain unresolved in the archives. Today, Anderson's legacy lives on as a case study in how private vengeance, when unchecked, can escalate conflict beyond control, leaving scars on communities that outlast the war itself.